Today, May the 17th, the third Dhamma talk session in this 11-day Satipatthana meditation retreat. On previous day, it has been explained that in noting the object, the two factors, vitakka, aiming, directing the mind onto the object, applying the mind onto the object, as well as effort, putting effort in order that the note mind should reach the object of meditation, pushing the mind so that the mind would reach the object of meditation. It is viriya. So these two factors are very important in the practice. One needs to apply these two factors so that the mind will be fresh, alert, active, and the mind will stick onto the object. Sati, mindfulness, will be cultivated. The mind will calm, collected on the object. Samadhi, concentration, will also be developed. And when sati and samadhi become continuous and strong, one discerns the nature of the object that has been noted. Vitakka, it is one of the jhanic factors. When we say jhana, many of the people think about the tranquility practice or the absorptions. But the word jhana means closely observing the object concentratedly. In other words, jhana also means burning, scorching, the opposite mental states. There are two kinds of jhana. Paramanupanijjhana. Paramanupanijjhana is the samatha practice, observing on a fixed single object such as kasina, tavikasina. So Paramanupanijjhana is the samatha practice. We can simply call it as samatha jhana. Lakhanupanijjhana is observing the characteristics of objects. So in Lakhanupanijjhana, one observes the characteristics, unique individual characteristics, common characteristics of the nama rupa, and observing Sandhi Lakhana, the characteristic of peacefulness, of Nibbana. But here in Satipatthana practice, at the moment one is practicing Satipatthana meditation, it is Lakhanupanijjhana, observing unique individual characteristic as well as common characteristic of the nama rupa. So we can simply call Lakhanupanijjhana as Vipassana jhana. To name it simply can be called Vipassana jhana. In the previous talk, it's been explained on unique individual characteristics such as Pathavi Dhatu, earth element, has the unique individual characteristic of hardness, softness, roughness, and so on. Its own flavor, its own taste. In the same way, the Nama Rupa, each of the Nama Rupa has their own unique individual characteristics. So as to discern them, one should be mindful at the presently arising object, noting it, directing the mind onto it, putting effort in noting, pushing the mind onto it. When sati, mindfulness sustained on the object, when the mind fall calm, collected on the object, having khanika samadhi, when they become continuous and strong, one discern the unique individual characteristic, such as when noting rising of the abdomen, one notices hardness, stiffness, tension, movement. When noting falling, relaxation, movement. When noting stretching, there is stiffness, tension, movement, and so on. So one comes to discern the unique individual characteristics that are obvious in the object that has been noted, and thus knowledge arises discerning the nature, characteristic of the object that has been noted. So in the beginning of the practice, yogi discern unique individual characteristic of the object that has been noted. Later on, when knowledge becomes, when mindfulness and concentration become stronger, yogi also come to notice the three moments of the object arising, presence, and dissolution. These are the three moments that dwell on the unique individual characteristics. For example, heat arises, it doesn't stay the same. It arises, present for a while, and it comes to a dissolution. So these are the three moments. Each of the unique individual characteristics later on one sees as well as the three moments arising, presence, dissolution. It is Sankhata Lakkhana, the trial moments. When the yogi comes to discern how the heat arises and passes away, yogi also discern the common characteristic of impermanence. Because this impermanence is common to every nama rupa. It is the common characteristic. Whatever that arises goes away. Whatever that arises passes away. For example, when noting pain, at first yogi discern what nature is obvious in the pain, such as stiffness. The stiffness doesn't stay the same. It arises and passes away. Whatever goes away, it is impermanent. And also, whatever goes away, it is not good. There is nothing good if something comes to a dissolution. So it is unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactoriness is also common characteristic that is common to all nama rupa. And there is no creator, no God that is making the object to arise and pass away. These objects arise in their own accord when there are certain circumstances and conditions. When circumstances and conditions are met, these objects arise and pass away in their own accord. So there is no atta in these nama rupa. Nama rupa are not atta themselves, and thus non-self is also common characteristic. So in this way, there are three kinds of characteristics. The first one, sabhava lakkhana, unique individual characteristics. At first, yogi discern the unique individual characteristics. Later on, yogi also comes to notice the three moments arising, presence, and dissolution. It is sankhata lakkhana. Then yogi also discern arising and passing away of the objects, and thus yogi discern common characteristic of impermanence, as well as nama rupa constantly arising and passing away, being tortured by constant arising and passing away, and thus it is unsatisfactory. The characteristic of unsatisfactoriness, also the common characteristic, non-self is also common characteristics. So samanya lakkhana, common characteristic of impermanent suffering and non-self. When the yogi sees the impermanence, yogi has cultivated vipassana knowledge. Here, the word vipassana, vi, means various manners of impermanent suffering and non-self. Passana means to see or to discern. So in this way, when the yogi sees the impermanence, yogi attains vipassana knowledge, insight knowledge. So like in the set, vipassana jhana is the lakhanupanijana, observing unique individual characteristic as well as common characteristics of the nama rupa. In order to discern these characteristics, yogi has to aim and direct the mind onto the object, which is vitaka, initial application. Applying the mind onto the object, vitaka, initial application. Sustained application, vichara, also arises. Vichara, sustained application, the mind as if like rubbing against the object. Yogi becomes certain what the object is, whether it is the stiffness, tension, or movement. So in this way, having vichara, there is certainty, and thus doubt and uncertainty cannot arise when vichara is present. Piti, joy arises, sukha, happiness, and ekagata, one-pointedness of the mind. So these five factors are the jhanic factor that can arise also in the vipassana jhana. Saroji gives an example of playing marble. In playing marble, there is the target marble, and the player has to throw the marble so that the marble will hit the target. In order to hit the target, has to aim and direct the marble towards the target and then throw the marble. So when the marble hits the target marble, the player feels joy, happiness, also one-pointedness of the mind. In the same way, when the yogi notes the object, aiming, directing the mind, putting effort, the noting mind hits the target object. There is sustained mindfulness, also sustained application. Vichara is there. Yogi feels joy and happiness. When the noting mind hits the target, the object, there is ekagata, one-pointedness of the mind, the mindful, calm, collected on the object. Later on, when the yogi is skillful in the practice, the mind is automatically aimed at the object. Skillful in the noting mind skillfully hits the target, the object of meditation. Yogi feels joy, happiness, as well as there is ekagata, or in other words, kanika samadhi, momentary concentration. When the noting mind falls, calm, collected on the object momentarily. So in this way, the two definitions, the two meaning, the first meaning of jhana, closely observing the object concentratedly. In this way, yogi practicing satipatthana meditation, closely observing the object of meditation concentratedly, having these factors of jhana. The second meaning is burning, scorching the opposite mental states. Jhana means burning, scorching the opposite mental states. So when the yogi is noting and discerning the object, having all these factors, at that very moment, kamachanda, nivarana, hindrances such as kamachanda, sensual desire, has no chance to arise. In this way, the vipassana jhana is burning, scorching, kamachanda, sensual desire, by not giving any chance for it to arise. Yabada, ill will, has no chance to arise. Chinamita, sloth and torpor, has no chance to arise. Odacha kokocha, restlessness, remorse, have no chance to arise. Vichikicha, skeptical doubt, has no chance to arise. In this way, every moment, yogi is mindful, discerning the object. These nivarana, hindrances, have no chance to arise, and thus they are being burnt and scorched moment by moment. Every time yogi notes and discerns the object, it is momentarily burning, scorching. But the very moment mindfulness slips away, at that moment, the hindrances can creep in. Nivrana, hindrances, they hinder the knowledge from arising. They hinder samadhi, sati, samadhi, panya from arising, and they also weaken the sati, samadhi, panya. If they are arising, if nirvana hindrances are arising, viriya, sati, samadhi, panya cannot arise because they are hindering. So that's why, as a yogi, one should be always be careful not to let these nirvana hindrances from coming into the mind. When you have all these factors, viriya, sati, samadhi, or in other words, if you have vitaka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekagata, at that very moment, nirvana hindrances are being burned and scorched. In the samatha jhana practice, practicing samatha jhana practice is to keep the mind calm, tranquil, gain absorption. But in vipassana jhana practice, we practice so as to gain knowledge into these characteristics of impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Practicing vipassana jhana, at first, one cultivates basic knowledge, the foundation knowledges of knowledge into mind and matter, cause and effect. Then one cultivates knowledge into impermanent suffering non-self, cultivate insight knowledge stage by stage, and finally, when one attains the path knowledge, one realizes nibbana and one realizes sandhi lakkhana, the characteristic of peacefulness of nibbana, when one attains the path knowledge. So practicing vipassana jhana, one cultivates vipassana knowledge stage by stage, and finally one realizes nibbana, and by so in this way, lakhanupani jhana, practice of vipassana jhana, one observes the characteristics of the nama rupa at the stage of vipassana, and when one realizes nibbana, one realizes the characteristic of peacefulness of nibbana. The ekagata, one pointedness that we cultivate in satipatthana practice, in the practice of vipassana, it is called khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, keeping the mind calm, collected on the object, moment by moment, one after another, so that one gains knowledge, cultivate knowledge. It is important to cultivate khanika samadhi moment by moment, one after another. Only if khanika samadhi is continuous and strong, one can discern and one can gain knowledge. Khanika samadhi, it has the characteristic of avakepo samadhi. Samadhi has the avakepa lakkhana, meaning it has the characteristic of non-distraction, non-restlessness. Having khanika samadhi, the mind will not be scattered, it will not be distracted. That's why it is said avakepa lakkhana. Khanika samadhi has the characteristic of not being distracted, not being scattered. And the function, Khanika samadhi functions as unifying the associated mental states on the object. Sahajatanandamana Aramane Sambindana Raso, meaning the Kanika Samadhi unifies other associated mental states onto the object. That means when Kanika Samadhi is present, not only Kanika Samadhi is there, but also other mental factors are being unified, falling calm, collected on the object that has been noted. Upasamaraso, Upasama Pachupatano, it manifests as calmness. So uh, in yogi's mind, the Kanika Samadhi manifests as calmness. So in this way, in the Satipatthana practice, one has to cultivate Kanika Samadhi moment by moment, one after another, every single second, so that the more continuous the Kanika Samadhi is, the faster knowledge unfolds. And when yogis come to interview, there are three things that yogi has to report: what object he's noting, what object arose, how he noted it, and what he or she comes to know. These three things should be reported, starting with the primary object. In the sitting meditation, rising occurred. I noted as rising. When I noted rising, I noticed stiffness, tension. Falling occurred. I noted as falling. When I noted falling, there was relaxation, movement. So this is just an example how one should include 3 points: what the object was, how the yogi noted it, and what he or she comes to know, starting with the primary object. And after that, what other secondary objects arose, how the yogi noted it, what he or she comes to know. Also, in the walking meditation, the 3 points: lifting, noting it as lifting, what he or she comes to know, and so on. In the daily activities, also, what object yogi is noting, how he noted it, and what he or she comes to know. So, in this way, when reporting in interview, these 3 points should be reported: arising of the object, how the yogi noted, and what he or she comes to know. So, time is up. May you all be able to practice smoothly, happily, healthily, without any difficulty, and may you all attain your goal in this very retreat, in this very life. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.